Okay, so who here likes profits? Yeah, there we go. Who here likes customers? Wow, a little bit less people. That's okay. One thing I've learned in doing quite a few years of startups is that the backyard is always on fire. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. I was 15 years old. I was obviously, at that age where you think through things extremely well. And I go over to my buddy's house. You know how everyone's got that buddy where, like, whenever the cops get called, that person is there next to you, right? And so my best friend, he was that guy for me. And I was over at his house one day, and our parents were having dinner, and he was like, dude, I got a really good idea. I was like, what's up? I grew up in Jersey. And he was like, I went over to PA, and I got a firework, and I have a glass jar, and I drilled a hole in it. Let's light this firework off on the train tracks in the woods and see what happens. And obviously, I was that kid who was a good influence on other kids. I was that kid where it was like, can I go to the party? And they'd say, is Zach going? And if I was going, then they can go to the party. And I was like, let's do it, right? So off we went. We went out to the woods. We lit the firework, put it in the middle of the railroad tracks, lit it, and it just started to go. And so we started booking it. So we're running away, and all of a sudden I'm looking behind me, and it just starts to go off. But instead of going up, it just, like it starts zipping around everywhere, and then just explodes. Glass shards are flying by us, and it was super cool as we were like in this fireball. We survived, everything was okay. And as we went back to the house, I look over and I was like, oh, look at those lights over there. Like, there must be cops seeing what went on. And I looked a little closer, and it was a fire. So we had started this forest fire. So I was a Boy Scout, and I ran over there. And as you get trained in Boy Scouts, I started jumping on the fire because, like, what else are you gonna do, you know? So I'm jumping on this fire, and he runs back to the house, and I'm like, go get water. So he runs back to the house, gets water, and so he runs in. Our parents are in the kitchen, and he runs in. He's in the kitchen, and he's like filling up this pot of water, and then he runs back to me. I get the pot of water. It's empty. He's soaked. So I start hitting the fire with this empty pot of water. I'm like, go get a fire extinguisher. He runs back to the house, gets a fire extinguisher, runs back, gives it to me. I pull the pin, push it down, and the thing had been expired for 15 years. And so nothing happened. And I'm like, go call someone. So he runs back into the house. And meanwhile, our parents, hear a big boom. A few minutes later, kid runs in, gets a pot of water, runs out. Runs in, gets a fire extinguisher, runs out. So they were like, okay, like we pretty much know what's going on here. They call the fire department. Fire department comes. They end up putting out the fire. And so I'm there, sweating, singed pants, melted shoes, soaking wet, scared to death. My life is over. And at this point, the cop, and I'm sitting down, and the cop walks up to me and my buddy. And he's like, so what happened here, boys? And so being a Boy Scout, and I told him the truth. I said, well, I'm a Boy Scout, and I saw a fire and decided to help put it out. Which is 100% true. And then he goes, well, next time leave it to the professionals, and we leave. And so we get in the car, and we're driving home. My dad turns around to me, and he's like, I hope you know how lucky you are. Because that could have been so much worse. You could have gotten in so much trouble. And today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the fires that we're facing in business. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Zack Oates, founder and CEO of Ovation. What was your name, sir? Mark Miller, nice to meet you, Mark. Now we know each other. This is me doing my favorite thing in the world, Saturday morning snuggles. I've got 3.5 kids. One's on the way in a month, or as I like to refer to it, 2 trade shows away from here. So my mother was a model. My dad played pro football. And fortunately, as many of you can realize, I got my dad's looks and mother's athletic ability, which is okay because that meant I got into startups. And I started off in restaurants. And this is me. This is actually... Oh, where's my friendly peeps at? Oh, here, woo! This is, what Friendlies is that, do you know? Morristown. That is the Morristown, New Jersey Friendlies. This is where I got introduced to peanut sauce and parole officers. And Had a lot of fun working there. That's me. I was really excited to bring the NASDAQ. It's a little less exciting once you actually do it. It's just like a little button, actually, that you just push. But I'd grown up in restaurants. My dad also owned a restaurant. Bless you, Troy. And one of the things that I learned is that everything we do in restaurants is for the guest experience. We do all this work to get people in. We do all this work to get people coming back. But do you know how many first-time guests don't come back to your restaurant? Most. 70%. I've read studies of 80%. Does that not just make you feel sick that you're doing all of this work to get guests there and they're not coming back? So we're going to talk a little bit about ladders today. And I love this quote. It says, many people spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. We climb so many ladders as we're trying to create an amazing guest experience, but yet a lot of times we're putting the wrong effort into the wrong things. And just because we're doing stuff doesn't mean that we're doing the right stuff. Josh is going to talk about that later on. But when it comes down to it, let's talk about the ladder of loyalty and what those 3 rungs are on the ladder of loyalty. First of all, you have one time. How do you get guests to come in for the first time? And then how do you get guests to come in for a few times? But the real question that we all should be asking is, how do we get guests to come in for a lifetime? That's what we're talking about. And we're going to get to that punchline. But first of all, we need to realize that customer retention, this is how we increase profits. The fastest way that you could increase profits is to get your people coming back more. A 5% increase in customer retention yields a 25 to 95% increase in profits. If you want profits, focus on retention. And when we're looking at this, what does it mean to come in one time? If you want guests to come in one time, you have got to have a convenient experience. Now, what does convenience mean? That means that the expectations exceed the effort. So let's talk about this. Here's a chart here, and the bottom, this is where it's not going to work out in the red. Expectations are higher than the effort required, and that is called the threshold of convenience, that line right there. And you've got to have the effort and the expectations aligned. So think about a McDonald's, right? When you go to a McDonald's, are you going there expecting a 5-star experience? No, you get what you're expecting. It's not a bad experience, but you're getting a McDonald's experience, which is a little bit different than the French Laundry, right? And so that's why there's so many McDonald's in such convenient locations and so few French Laundries in the world. And so when you're looking at your brand, what does that really mean? And how do you make it more convenient? Because the fact is that 97% of people are going to back out of a purchase because it's inconvenient. So what is your location? What's your parking? What's your online ordering? And if you look at why do they come in for the first time, it's about food, service, cleanliness. If you look at all of these things, the online reviews, the word of mouth, ease of ordering, appearance, marketing, perceived value, catering drops, phone answers. If you look at all these things, is it convenient? Is every step for your guest convenient? Because the harder you make it for someone to order, the less likely they are to order. And intuitively it makes sense, but yet in practice, we tend not to do that. And so if we're looking at what does this all mean, it really boils down to the first thing that people are going to see is they're going to see your online reputation, right? Now, when you go and you Google something, and you Google, we're here in Chicago, how many people here Googled okayest hot dog near me? Anyone? Most average pizza around? No one. Wow, shocking, right? What do you Google when you're in a new city and you're looking for something, you're looking for lunch and you're feeling pizza? You open up Google and what do you type in? Best pizza. Well, guess what? If you have below a 4 stars, if any of your locations have below a 4 stars, they don't show up. Google will immediately remove any location below 4 stars. So, table stakes. Table stakes, table stakes. You have to have 4 stars in every single one of your locations or you don't exist. Okay? This is how you're found. And when you look at what you need to do, you need to become more than just fine. Does anyone know Mike Bausch, president of the World Pizza Association, has one of the top 10 pizzerias in America, Andolini's Pizzeria, about 15 locations, really cool guy. And here he talks about how fine is the worst F word there is. He has another comment about at least the other F word has some good connotations. If it's terrible, they don't come back. If it's fine, they don't come back. Either way, you make $0. So do you want to be fine? How many people come back for fine? How many people blog about fine? How many people will leave you a review for fine? I was at a restaurant, at a Wolfgang Puck restaurant, with the president of a restaurant brand that has about 1,500 locations. And we were sitting there eating, and I ordered a croissant. It came out, and I took a bite of it, and it was like really bad. It was like dry, it was bland. And so the server came up and was like, oh no, I told this gentleman, I was like, hey, like this croissant right here is why you need Ovation. Because how is Wolf, how is his team gonna know that this croissant was bad? And he's like, I know, I came here last week and the croissant was terrible. Not 30 seconds later, the server comes up, right? Now, he owns 1,300 restaurants. I own a guest feedback platform. So obviously, what do we say? It was fine. It was fine. And I was like, dude, if there are any two people in this world that should be given feedback, it's us two. But even we don't want to do that, right? People don't want to give that face-to-face feedback. They don't want to become the next viral meme. So you've got to make things convenient. But just as that croissant, it's not just about convenience, right? Because we got there. It's about consistency. You have to have what you say you're going to have when you say you'll have it, right? There is nothing that will solicit a negative review faster from me than when I show up to a place at 5:30, well, let's be more realistic, at like 9:30 when it says it's going to close at 10, and doors are shut, can't order food. And I'm not talking about a nice steakhouse. I'm talking like fast food, fast casual, when they just close shop 30 minutes early because they want to leave. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. It creates a really bad experience. And anyone here from Chick-fil-A or Popeyes? All right, good. Let me tell you. Now, who has a better chicken sandwich? And this is a right or wrong answer. Who has a better chicken, objectively? Rev, who has a better chicken sandwich? That is true. Handcraft Burgers and Brew does have a wicked chicken sandwich and amazing, amazing fries. If you're in New York, it's worth a trip. Actually, you know what? If you're at Handcraft Burgers and Brew, New York is worth a trip. We'll flip that around. So, Popeyes has a better chicken sandwich. It is delicious when it's good. It's really, really good. Chick-fil-A has a great chicken sandwich, right? Popeyes, 10 out of 10. Chick-fil-A, an 8 out of 10. But, Popeyes isn't always a 10 out of 10. In fact, sometimes it's a 1 out of 10. Sometimes it's awful. Sometimes the service is terrible. Sometimes they're out of their chicken sandwich. Sometimes they have woody chicken breasts. So are you from Popeyes? Okay, just want to make sure you're not recording me to send this to like your boss or something. Chick-fil-A, on the other hand, they're an 8 out of 10. When is the last time you had a Chick-fil-A that wasn't an 8 out of 10? When's the last time you went to Chick-fil-A and you had rude service? When's the last time you went to Chick-fil-A and thought, that's not what I paid for? Chick-fil-A is so consistent. So where do I go? I go to Chick-fil-A because I know what to expect, right? I go to Chick-fil-A because they're consistent. And if you look at this cycle, what does that mean? That means you have to train your staff, which is teach me why and show me how. And you have to track the implementation of that training. And then you review what's going wrong, and you train, and then you track, and you train and track. And this is how you keep a consistent brand. If you don't have either of these things, there's a problem. If you're only tracking and you're not training your staff, they're going to start doing it wrong, right? They don't know the right way to do things necessarily. They'll forget the right way to do things. You've got to have a consistent program to train your staff. But it's not just about that. You also have to have a system, to track, and you got to have a system to train. So for example, I took my son just turned 4, and so we went to Disneyland for his birthday, and we rode on his first roller coaster. And he was super jazzed about this. So this is him as we are on the way up The first roller coaster he ever did. He's just so adorable. Look at that kid. But I'll tell you what, he did turn on the garbage disposal the other day when my hand was down there. It was the freakiest thing. So PSA, if you're cleaning out the disposal, unplug that sucker. Because anyway, luckily, I have all my fingers still, because otherwise I wouldn't be speaking today, because that happened on Sunday. Anyway, still gives me the heebie-jeebies. Anyway, so that's him going up, right? And then the first dip, there he is. Does he not look like 90 years old? Like he just... That is what happens, because you train how to do something, and then they get to a Friday dinner rush, and what happens? It's like, well, shoot, we're just surviving, right? That's what happens. And so that's why you need to train and track and track and train. You got to have both sides of that to make sure that you're keeping that consistency. When you train and track, magic happens. For example, we work with a very large pizza chain that we can't talk about yet, but they're very big. I promise you all know them. Some of you have mixed feelings about them. I personally love their jalapeno cheesy bread. But they had some issues that were coming up. Ovation showed them they had some issues around food prep. And so what happened? They went in, trained their staff on how to fix and how to make pizza properly, and complaints went from 28 complaints a week at this specific location down to 3 complaints a week about food prep issues. Because they knew exactly what to train, because they had a tool to track. And when you're making these changes and things are becoming better, the great thing about this is, especially with Ovation, is you're able to drive those 5-star reviews. So in this scenario, in this case, they 3x their 5-star reviews in a matter of 5 months. They went from 3.3 stars to 4.5 stars. Now, I don't know how many nationally recognized pizza places you know of that are at 4.5 stars, but this is why they rolled this out nationwide. But we're here talking about, again, more than just getting them in one time, which is about convenience. More than just about getting them in a few times, which is about consistency. We're talking about getting them in for a lifetime, which is all about connection. It's about individual connection. And that means, the way that I define connection is they care about you because they know that you care about them. And you can't reverse that order. You really, truly have to care about them. And the good thing is, it's about connection, not perfection. You don't have to do everything perfectly. It's okay if there are some mess-ups. They actually did a study. It's called the Service Recovery Paradox, where here what they found is this is a guest who never had a service failure on the blue, and the green, this is a guest who had a service failure with a proper service recovery. That guest, statistically, is more likely to become loyal than if they never had an issue in the first place. Isn't that crazy? But it makes sense intuitively. When you get into an argument with your SO, with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever friend, and you make up and you say, hey, I'm so sorry, I messed up, can you forgive me? Are you guys closer or further apart? You're closer, right? So too in business. It's about that connection. I love honeycomb cereal. Unabashedly, I eat like a 5-year-old. I love honeycomb cereal. And a couple years back, they actually changed their recipe. And they had this new recipe. It was supposed to be better, and it was not. It was horrible. It was like cardboard. I thought it was stale. I found out they changed their recipe. I called in to Post. I wrote them a Facebook message. I was furious that they would mess with my childhood. And they didn't say anything. And then a couple months later, I get a message back on Facebook. And they're like, hey, what's your address? And I'm like, sure, here it is, right? Given my address, I was curious. And a couple days later, I get a box in the mail. And it's got a box of honeycomb in it with a letter, not handwritten, but at least it's in handwriting font. So give them some credit for that. And it was an apology. It was an apology that they changed their recipe. They let us know that they heard us being like crazy people that were like writing into them. And they went back to the original recipe, and that here's a box on them just as an apology. And now, guess who travels around the country talking about how much they love honeycomb and their guest experience? This Hawaiian shirt wearing guy, right? And so the Rev was talking about how I did write a book about dating. It's called Dating Never Works Until It Does. And I was thinking about writing a sequel called Marriage Never Works, period. But luckily, I have an amazing wife. And of all the lessons, like when someone's getting married, I only have one piece of advice that I give them, which is hot tub nights. So once a week, my wife and I, we get into the hot tub and we ask each other, we have this very similarly structured conversation where I say, here's something I appreciate about you. And she says, here's something I appreciate about you. And then I say, what can I do to improve? And she says, what can I do to improve? And then, we have a conversation about finances and goals for the week. But that weekly conversation, it's like it's like a soda bottle that like getting shaken up all week. And then just like, tss, right? Every single Sunday we have a little tss. And that means there's no big blow-ups, unless of course I'm trying to get her to move, which we are doing actually. And that was a battle, but we are moving into a new place. And so this conversation, this hot tub chat, is such a great way to stay connected. And one of the reasons why is because again, it works in the hot tub and it works in your business. Okay? When you look at this connection step, this connection cycle, it starts off with asking. You need to ask your guests how you're doing. If you don't have a system or a tool right now to ask your guests how you're doing, you're missing out. There are things happening right now in your restaurant that you don't know about. So you need to ask them, and then you need to listen to them. You need to actually care. And then you need to make it good right now. And then you need to find the trends to fix it forever. Just like you can do in, hot tub connection, you could also do with guest connection. That's what it's all about. Now, here's a bad example of this. So my wife and I went to a pizza place in a place called St. George, Utah. And it was like really bland pizza, okay? Not a national chain, incidentally. And so she left them a 3-star review. You can see she left 51 reviews in her life at that point. So she's not a huge reviewer, but that's quite a big number. And she left a 3-star review. Pizza was on the lower end of okay, wouldn't go back. Now look, I get it. Usually only psychopaths leave 3-star reviews, right? And I get it, that's not a very helpful review, right? There's not a lot of substance to that. I get it, okay? But this is how the owner responded. Thank you for your comment. You must be a pizza expert to make that comment or know what a real homemade, made from scratch pizza with everything fresh and custom made fresh pizza is all about, or you're used to frozen pizza. Now look, I get that there's some emotion. They got a 3-star review, but that is not a helpful review, very unhelpful response to that review, right? And so then my wife goes in, edits her review to be a 1-star, and comes back and says, I wouldn't call myself a pizza expert, but do I subscribe to Pizza Today? Yep. Did I attend the International Pizza Expo in Vegas this year? Of course. And as someone who has lived in Italy and gets New York City pizza every few months, I do know a little. And the only thing worse than your response to my honest review of the pizza was your soggy calamari. See why I stay with her, huh? She was worth 1,000 dates. And so I commented, I took a screenshot that I posted on Facebook, and it got 287 reactions, 51 comments. People went and looked at all of their other stuff online. This owner's wilding out. Such a bad look for companies to pick fights or question or make their customers feel inferior. Never ends well. And it doesn't. And this is such a bad look, right? This is a bad example of what to do with honest feedback, right? And so the little things are really what's important, right? You want to make sure that you're doing these little things like asking, like listening, like fixing now, like making it right. Why? Because the little things matter because they're the little things. You could fake the big things. This is a flight attendant on Delta, and you could tell it's Delta because he cares. And he is holding that woman's hand because she was having she was scared of the flight, and so he went, sat down, got her some coffee. Apparently he might have taken it back, and he's holding her hand though to make her feel better, right? That's a little thing. Incidentally, I got my Delta and my American access hacked the same week, right? Because I don't follow protocols and I use the same password for both of them. And so they both got hacked and both my miles got stolen. I got about 5,000 miles, $5,000 worth of miles stolen from American. I got about $10,000 of miles stolen from Delta. And I called both companies. What did Delta do? So sorry, here you go, refunded all of that, we'll handle it, don't worry about it, let's change your password. What did American do? Well, that's your fault for having the same password. Didn't refund my miles, said if you want to file a complaint, you have to get a police order, you have to get a police report from your local police department, fax us a hard copy of that, and then within 4 to 8 months, we'll get back to you with a resolution. In the meanwhile, we're deleting your account and you don't have access to your American, to the rest of the miles that you have with us. Like, what? Right? That's one of the reasons I'm not moving to Dallas. It's just I can't fly American, right? But I asked my wife one time, I go, how do you know that I love you? And she's, I had just, we had gone on a surprise trip. I had just bought her this nice gift. And so I'm expecting her to talk about one of these like big gestures. And she said, because you leave water on my nightstand. And I was like, the water? It was the water that she cared. At first I was a little bugged. I'm like, I'm dropping some good money on you. And I'm like, but this is what she cared about because it was small. I order a lot of shirts from Sunday Swagger. I love Sunday Swagger. With my last shipment, I just got the shirt I'm going to wear tomorrow, actually. It's my sandwich shirt, a la Groucho's. And on my receipt that came with my shirt, they said, Zach, welcome back to Sunday Swagger. Thank you for your order. Because I had previously I'd ordered a bunch of my shirts through my business account, not my personal account. So it had been like a few months since I'd ordered from Sunday Swagger. And they wrote this handwritten note on my receipt. These are the little things, ladies and gentlemen, that make a huge difference. This is how you build connection with your guests. This is how you're tapping into this universal human desire. This desire that, as Rev said, I've been to 50 countries, and I've seen this in Egypt, I've seen this in the Philippines, I've seen this in Africa, I've seen this in New York City. This universal human desire is constant around the globe and with every individual, and that is the desire to feel important. This is what people want to feel, because innately we understand that we're each important. And what does important mean? Well, here's a good explanation of it. I have a friend, Julianne, she lives in New York City, and she has 2 coffee shops by her place in Brooklyn. One has good coffee and is 30 seconds farther away from her house. The other has great coffee and is 30 seconds closer, right? So, obviously, where does she go? The great one that's 30 seconds closer, the good one that's 30 seconds farther. A or B? What do you guys think? B, right? Obviously. But she doesn't. She goes to A. Why? Because she has a relationship. She feels heard. She feels cared about. At this place, they know that her name is Julianne. And so she will take good coffee. Now, if that were bad coffee, no, she wouldn't go there, right? Doesn't matter what kind of connection you build. You have to have the table stakes. You got to have that convenience threshold. But she would rather get good coffee a little bit further because they care about her, because they have a relationship with her. In our studies, we found that the top reasons for negative reviews are going to be around the food and the service. But if you look at the top reasons of the angriest reviews, it's going to be around service and accuracy. Because these are the 2 things that say, you know what? I don't care about getting your order right. I don't care about you as a guest. I don't care about greeting you. I don't care because you're not important to me and to this brand. And that is the fastest way that you lose connection, that you lose ground, and that you lose guests. But this is hand-to-hand combat, folks. We're all sitting here, learning about this stuff. But at the end of the day, your GMs, your frontline workers, they're the ones that are creating these experiences. And I want each of you to take a second and think about this. When have you felt important in your life? What's a specific moment that you can say, I feel important right now? I remember I remember when my dad came home from the Super Bowl, and we all go home, and what does he do? Is he out partying with his boys? No, he's hanging out with his boys, right? He's hanging out with me and my brother. And he's talking to us about, how did your day go after winning the Super Bowl? That's what he's talking about. That was a time that I felt important. Think about that feeling that you have about when you felt important. And I want you to imagine who's important to you, right? And at the end of the day, how do they know that they're important to you? Does your staff feel important? Because again, it's about them connecting with your guests. One of the things that we do is we have a spin the wheel, where every single month, everyone gets a bonus that they get to give to someone else at Ovation. And then we spin the wheel, and you can take your bonus and you put it in the pot, and you can win the whole pot. And so this is something that we do just to make sure that everyone feels that gratitude, and they know that they're important to us. So the question is, how do your guests feel important, and are you tracking that? And that's one of the things at Ovation that we're so passionate about. We have a 2-question survey, and if they love it, what do? We invite them to do things that are going to drive revenue by creating these great experiences. If they don't love it, we ask them why, and then in 2 clicks, you can respond to your guests and help them feel heard, help them feel like they're known, help them feel important. And we take all of that data, we aggregate it, and we ask them what can they do. We show exactly what they can do to improve and where the issues are, so you can know exactly what to fix where. And the nice thing is that you have the follow-up marketing to drive people back in. Real quick, who here uses Ovation and loves it? Yeah, you love it? Woo! There we go. And ask anyone who uses Ovation about their experience with it. Ask them why they love it. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to, and because I know that my bodyguards are up here about ready to tackle me off. But at the end of the day, they're going to love it because it's not just improving the guest experience, but it's improving the profit. We just did a study with a large chain, and they put us in the same brand, same city, same marketing budget, different locations. And after running Ovation for 4 months in some stores, not in others, they found out that Ovation locations increased profits above the base case by 9% in 4 months. And at the end of the day, if you want to get to that top rung, that's what we're here to help you do. To get you those 5-star reviews so you pass that threshold of convenience. To measure the consistency so you can know what to train and track on. And then to build that connection with the guests to get them to come back for a lifetime by making sure that they feel heard and that they have a place that they can share with you what went well and what didn't. And we'll skip through some of these, but at the end of the day, if you ever read a deathbed study, it's fascinating to hear what people say in their last moments. They wish they could have made more meaningful connections with the people they loved most. And that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. Hospitality is a dialogue, as Danny Meyer says. It's not about an 11th thing free for loyalty. It's about true connection. And if you're interested to learn how Stickies did it and how we can help you do it, please reach out to us. Again, my name is Zack Oates. I'm here with Justin Roundy from Ovation. Or talk to anyone that raised their hand that uses Ovation. Thank you very much.